It occurred to me the other day that I have not made a long form video for YouTube in about a while. So we're going to fix that problem today. We are going to do something I've wanted to do for a little while. I was encouraged and inspired to do this with the news that Scream 7 is in production. And not only that, but there are some returning cast members to Scream 7, which brings a lot of intrigue with it. How are we going to fit these people in? And so, because of all of that, I decided let's go back and rewatch all of the Scream films. Let's go back and do it. And because of that, I decided I need to rank these films. I felt the need and the desire to give my astute opinion on what the best and worst of the Scream franchise is. And that's what we're here to do today. We are going to rank every Scream film from worst to best. Let's go. Okay. All right. Our friend Ghostface, we're visiting him. Let's start. So number six. So coming in at number 6, this is the worst of the Scream. When I went back and watched these, there was really only one that stood out as bad. Like the rest of them kind of moved around in my numbers. Like I would put one at 4, and then I decided, nah, that's more like 3, or that's more like 5. Whatever. Okay, they bounced around, but there was a definitive number 6. There was one that I felt deserved this last spot, and it held on to this last spot. It never moved. I never changed my opinion on it, and that is Scream 5. Scream 5 suffers from what I like to call the Force Awakens effect, okay? Let's make a remake of a movie 10 years after we made the last one, basically. And every single one of these movies turns out to be pretty much bad. Pretty bad. And the reason, there's several reasons, okay? First of all, this movie felt like a retelling of Scream. It really did in a lot of ways. They brought back the original characters for nostalgia, and you could tell it was just for nostalgia. Like you could tell the reason Sid's here, the reason Gale's here, the reason Dewey's here, it's all nostalgia, which is the exact same thing the Force Awakens did. It brought back the legacy characters for nostalgia. In some ways, it betrays those characters. Like, I really don't like what they did with Dewey and Gale's relationship, because we kind of left on a positive note for these characters after 3 and even into 4. And then 5 sort of flips that on its head, and for some reason they're not together anymore, and it's just kind of annoying. It just takes like this lore that was built and these relationships that was built, and we reached what felt like a logical conclusion, and then 5 spins it on its head, and who knows why they decided to do this, but I really didn't like it. I also don't like the way they handled Dewey altogether in this movie. Dewey's death feels like such a waste. It's treated they're in this like hospital, and then no one's in the hospital for some reason, and then all of a sudden Dewey's killed, and it's like it's treated almost like, it's not treated as if it's nothing, but the emotional reaction to this beloved character who's been around for the first one, it felt a lot like Han Solo. It felt a lot like Han Solo dying in The Force Awakens. So again, just taking legacy characters and not treating them with the respect that they deserve. All of the new characters in this movie are the most annoying people you've ever met in your life. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why a lot of modern movies are writing characters to be this way. Maybe I'm just completely out of touch with the youth, and teenagers are in fact this annoying. But if not, these writers are just choosing to make these characters absolutely insufferable. Take the 2 most annoying people you've ever met in your life, multiply them by 4, and then put them together in a group. And that's what you have with a lot of these modern horror movies. You're just counting down the hours until these kids perish. It's not a situation where you're rooting for them. You're rooting for Ghostface. And if that's exactly what they were going for, well, they nailed that here, because these are some of the most annoying characters. I just could not stand any of them. I just couldn't stand any of them. And the killers are so lackluster in this film. The reveal of the killers, it was so lackluster and disappointing and so guessable, in my opinion. So predictable. Again, just retelling. Just, oh, it's your boyfriend. And it's his friend. Spoiler alerts, I guess, but I'm spoiling the worst Scream movie, so thank me later. Scream 5 is just, it's not good. It's the only one in the franchise, actually, that I think fits the category of not good. And that's why it's at the bottom of the list. Now, coming in at number 5, I think this is going to be the first. I think this is going to be the first bit of controversy on this list, and that is Scream 2. Now, the reason I'm putting Scream 2 so low, I don't think Scream 2 is a bad movie. I just think it feels very repetitive after watching the first one. When you marathon these things back to back, Scream 2, it just doesn't do anything too original. It feels kind of like it just feels a lot of the same to the first one. I don't think it breaks any new ground. I don't think they take any new different directions. The opening scene too, after the first one with that iconic opening scene, and we'll talk about that when we get to number 1. This opening scene felt so lackluster. Like Jada Pinkett Smith, no offense to her, but she is nowhere near on the level of Drew Barrymore when it comes to fame, and it just didn't feel as captivating as the scene from the first one. The cafeteria scene in this movie is incredibly cringe and feels so out of place to the rest of the movie that it's jarring. It's actually jarring. The characters here are annoying as well. Dewey in particular is just, I feel, very annoying in this movie. I don't know why, but I find him and Gail's relationship to actually be grating in this movie. It's like not worth, you're not rooting for it. That's for sure. It's just sort of annoying. The killer reveals, they try this fake out, but it really doesn't work because you know they're not going to do the boyfriend again. You know they're not going to do the boyfriend again. So when the killer reveals happen, that also, again, lackluster, right? I said it about 5. I'll say it about 2. It felt very lackluster. I do, however, like how they handle Cotton Weary. I do, however, like how they handle Sid and Cotton's relationship. I do like that. I think that's done really well in 2. And the kills, the gore, it's all good here. It's all good in 2. So Scream 2 isn't terrible. It's certainly not as bad as 5. But I think when you go back and watch it, it just feels very repetitive. And that's why it's number 5 on my list. Now, number 4 is Scream 6. Take everything from 5, okay? Take the characters from 5 and make them far less annoying because they fixed that with 6. They took the annoying characters in 5, and then in 6, for some reason, these same characters, and they are the same characters, they're a little more grown up, I suppose, because they're in college as opposed to being in high school, but they work way better in 6. They actually gel really well. You kind of like the core 4 and 6 a lot more than you do in 5, and I think that's what saves this movie and takes it and elevates it above 5. It's actually just a better movie in general than 5, really. I like the New York setting. I think it works. You have a really aggressive Ghostface in this movie, like super aggressive, definitely the most aggressive in the series, and I like that. I think it's an interesting spin on the character Ghostface. I really actually enjoyed that. It felt different. Everything about 6 felt different, but it felt different in a good way. And we'll get to another one of the sequels that did sort of the same thing. Not the same thing, but just made things feel a little different. The tension here, man, from the beginning of the film all the way to the end, that tension is just at 11. And you feel that throughout the whole movie. And it's really cool. Like Ghostface could literally come out of nowhere. And it's pretty cool, actually. I enjoy this different take on Ghostface. The killer's reveal, it was but it wasn't as It wasn't as as 2 and 5. I still think it was meh. The gore's dialed up here to 11. It's awesome. The added gore in this one is awesome. So Scream 6 feels like a good time. It feels like a thrill ride. I enjoy it. I think it's better than 2. I think it's better than 5. That's why it's number 4. Coming in at number 3 is Scream 3. Now, I know this is a lot of people's worst. I know this is on the bottom of a lot of people's list. I don't understand why this movie catches as many strays as it does. I think Scream 3, after the lackluster Scream 2, Scream 3 tries something different. And I think it does it super well. I don't understand why this movie is as hated as it is. I don't understand why a lot of people think this is worse. They lean more into comedy in this one, but it works. It works. You have this group of actors that are playing the characters from the Stab franchise, from Scream, and it's so funny. It's actually funny. Like, there are times you laugh out loud in this movie. The cast is incredible in this one. I think this is the best Dewey, Sid, Gale, like that group as a trio. I think this movie does the best job with that trio because they're very likable in this movie. They're all very likable. And the tension between Gale and Dewey isn't as bad here. It isn't as annoying. It's actually way more enjoyable. I liked the Hollywood setting. I thought they did a really good job of that. They did this cool thing in this one where like they tease the idea that Sid's mom is a ghost. And it's, of course, like dream sequences and stuff like that. But I thought that was really cool. It was an interesting twist. Felt very Wes Craven. This is the most fun of the movies in the series. And again, I think it was a transition and a change because 2 felt so repetitive to 1. And a lot of people didn't like it, but I did. I enjoy it. And so here it is at number 3. Now coming in at number 2, and you know which 2 are left. And I think you can probably guess where they belong. But number 2 is Scream 4. Scream 4. My gosh, they did this cool thing. They satirized the idea of remakes. Like, this whole movie is kind of a satirical look on remakes. And it's done very well and very meta. But then they sort of violated that when they made Scream 5, and they leaned into all the things that this was sort of satirizing in Scream 5, which is why Scream 5 is bad and this one is good. This one had the best killer reveal. I think outside of 1, obviously 1 is the best, but outside of 1, this had the second best killer reveal. You didn't really see it coming, and it was an interesting idea too, taking the concept of fame and boy, what ahead of its time. Scream 4 was ahead of its time. With fame and social media and the idea that this can warp your mind and make you sort of seek out fame. And boy, that is just more and more prevalent now than it was even back when Scream 4 came out, which I believe was 2011. So how ahead of its time was this movie? Emma Roberts was a great casting. The legacy characters are great here too. I love Scream 4. I think Scream 4 is the best sequel, and I would stand by that. Coming in at number 1, no shock to anybody, this is Scream, the original Scream. This movie's iconic. This movie is iconic. It stands the test of time. It introduced us to Ghostface and Sidney Prescott, these characters that one of the best final girls of all time probably, and one of the most famous slashers of all time. It basically took a dying horror genre and reinvigorated it when it came out. The opening, still shocking to this day when you watch. I mean, you know it now, so it's not as shocking, but it's like shocking they made that decision to take an A-list actress like Drew Barrymore, throw her in the movie, and just offer right in the beginning, which really introduced you to the concept and the idea that anything goes in these movies. Anything goes. You think someone's safe? Well, they're not, and you need to be on the edge of your seat at all times. And that was really a cool thing. The cast is awesome. The concept is clever with prank calls. It's just such a good movie. Scream is one of the best horror movies of all time. I think that's fair to say. One of the best slashers of all time for sure. It belongs at number 1. It deserves to be at number 1, and none of the sequels have been able to surpass it. So Scream is my number 1. What did you think about my rankings? Am I wrong? Am I completely off? I'm sure you disagree. A lot of people hate Scream 3, so I'm sure you disagree with my placement of it. Let me know in the comments what you think about my rankings. Where would you rank the Scream films? What's the best? What's the worst? What's in between? Let me know. Wonder how 7's going to fit in. I wonder how 7 is going to fit in. I'm very curious about it. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you all on the next one. Peace.